Exactly. An injury to one is an injury to all.
Come on.
Indeed. Martin Luther King said it in so many ways. But the flip side of that is, as we get together as a movement for justice that crosses these borders that have been used to divide us, racial justice, climate justice, environmental justice, worker justice, LGBTQ justice, women's and immigrants, and indigenous justice, we become an absolutely unstoppable force. We are the ones we've been waiting for. There is no stopping us when we stand up together. The courage. I want to say two more quick things really about organizing, and then maybe we can do some open Q&A because it's just always more interesting that way. I was just in LA, as I mentioned, at this Bernie Cafe, which was just incredible. And one of the things that we did while we were there was go to the LA City Hall. Anybody know what's going on in the LA City Hall? It's amazing the press is not covering this. It's just...
The mayor won't talk to the Black Lives Matter protesters.
And the Black Lives Matter, thank you. The Black Lives Matter protesters have been basically living in an encampment now for about 54 days to protest the police department with the highest murder rate of any department across the country. They're saying it's time to get rid of the police chief who has presided over that kind of slaughter in the community. So we were there to support them, which was really a wonderful thing to do. We have another Facebook Live on our Facebook page. We actually lift up the voices of the Black Lives Matter community. One of the women whose son was just a victim, an 18-year-old whose son was killed 1 month ago, who is part of the encampment there. And she, Lisa Simpson, tells her unbelievable, incredible story. And so we've used our campaign as a vehicle to lift up the frontline struggles, because this is what America looks like. It's not all about Hillary's emails and how bigoted and hateful Donald Trump is. This is about the battles that we are fighting. It's about the struggle for justice that we are actually leading in our communities, and the success that we are having in lifting up this struggle for justice. So this is what you'll see on our Facebook page at any rate, and I encourage you to go there and listen to the incredible inspiration coming from the Black Lives Matter movement on the steps of the LA State House, City Hall. When I was there, one of the organizers said to me that there were 7 new Green Party organizations that had just been established. 7 new Green Party chapters just in LA County alone. It is we are self-organizing, and we are absolutely unstoppable. By the way, we will also be, early next week, we're going to Detroit tomorrow, in fact, to support the resistance there against the water shutoffs.
Come on.
Privatizing their system, charging people exorbitant rates. People are having to choose between water or paying the rent. Their foreclosures are skyrocketing. This is a state of emergency. It's absolutely unacceptable. After that, we will be going to the Standing Rock and helping them tell their story and make it national so that everyone can hear about what's going on there, and the incredible, courageous leadership that's coming out of our indigenous brothers and sisters who are standing up not just for their water supply, it's ultimately our water supply. The Missouri River, which they are protecting, is one of the biggest suppliers of water in the country. Millions upon millions, tens of millions of people who are being put at risk. And they are putting their bodies in harm's way in order to protect us. So I just want to give a shout out to our Dakota brothers and sisters. And my one last thing, they tell us that, oh, why do we even bother? You know, don't we know that we are just irrelevant in this election? Well, I try to remind these people that, in fact, the majority of Americans have rejected Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton.
That's right.
Most disliked and most untrusted presidential candidates in our history. The American people are clamoring for something else. They have a right not only to vote, but in America we also have a right to know who we can vote for. We need to open up the debate. So I urge you to go to our website and join our campaign for open debates and consider coming with. We have a petition on the website, and I urge you to sign it and tell everybody you know. We have almost 100,000 people who signed up right now. We intend to deliver this petition and also get the university on notice.
That's right.
That it
That's
is
right.
not okay for an educational institution which should be dedicated to open debate and the lack of censorship. It's not okay for them to sponsor a censored debate. They need to say to the Commission on Presidential Debates, it's time to open the door, or they will not host the debate.
Yeah.
In this election, you know, this is not any old election, because for one thing, the majority of the Americans are outraged at the choices that we are being forced fed. And we're also outraged at the media who created this disaster. $4 billion worth of free media for Donald Trump alone.
Right.
In the words of one of the presidents of one of the major media networks, he may not be good for America, but he sure is good for our bottom line. Well, your bottom line is not allowed to take over and suppress and hijack our democracy. We are calling on the media to actually do your job. The reason a free press is the First Amendment is because a free press is absolutely critical to the functioning of democracy.
That's right.
We must have an educated electorate if we are to function as a democracy. So when the press say to me, how do you intend to get the word out? I say to them, well, isn't that your job?
That's right. Good job.
I have to give a quick shout out to Ajamu Baraka. We are dedicated to the proposition that we need an America that serves all of us, and that in this election we must have the voices of all people represented, including oppressed communities who are usually shut out of a presidential dialogue. That is what Ajamu Baraka is standing up for. And if you had the pleasure of listening to the CNN town hall meeting, did anybody hear it? If you haven't heard it, you want to check it out. That too is on our Facebook page and on our website. But it was 90 minutes of what you cannot say on primetime TV. It all got said, and it felt so good. It was trending #1 on Twitter for the whole time.
That's right.
Because America wants to know what we are talking about. America wants to hear about this suppressed discussion, about how we really address this historic legacy of racism from the criminal institution of slavery, which rolled over into lynchings, which rolled over into Jim Crow,
That's right.
which rolled over into segregation, into the war on drugs, into mass incarceration, and into police violence. This is nothing new. We are also call for reparations.
That's right.
To return the incredible blood, sweat, and tears from African Americans who built the foundation of this country. It's not like it ended with the Emancipation Proclamation. There's a debt to be repaid. We need to restore us to wholeness as a society. I want to make one more comment about our power to turn this around.
Right.
Because in fact, we are not powerless, although we are told that over and over again. Not only do the American people reject the warmongers, the racists, the hate mongers who are running for office, it turns out there are 43 million young people and not so young people who are trapped in student loan debt.
Oh.
Anybody know anybody who's locked in student loan debt?
Right here.
Yeah, you bet.
Me.
If you are lucky enough to have someone in your family who was lucky enough to go to college, they are trapped in student loan debt because the jobs aren't there to pay it back. You know, we have a birth rate which is plummeting in this country. Now that doesn't happen because people are just so happy and they're busy, you know, playing video games or something. You know, when a birth rate is going over the cliff, you know there's a real problem going on. There's a real crisis going on. We have a human rights crisis that is basically affecting an entire generation. We need to pay attention to this. This is one of the major elephants in the room. We have a generation that's basically been thrown under the bus. They do not have jobs. They do not have a climate future. They do not have a place to live. And they are locked into debt which cannot be repaid. Well, guess what? It turns out 43 million people is what's involved here. Now that just happens to be the number of people that it takes to win a three-way presidential race. And don't feel like you need to keep this a secret. When you go out of here tonight, you can share this with everyone you know who's trapped in student debt, and just remind them that friends don't let friends stay home in debt.
That's right.
On election day. Come out and vote green in 2016 to end that debt. And young people who are pretty good at self-mobilizing, if you may have noticed, they mobilized to protect the internet when that was threatened. We've done some remarkable things through the internet. Black Lives Matter has also been self-organized all over the country. We can do a lot when we decide we need to do it. So don't for a minute accept this propaganda that you have to let your lives in debt. You'll never get out of it. In fact, we can do for young people what our political leaders saw fit to do for the crooks on Wall Street. They bailed them out. Time to bail out generations of young people. As far as I'm concerned, Wall Street already tore up the contract when they crashed the economy because those loans were all based on the idea that there would be jobs at the other end of your education, right? Well, guess what? Those jobs aren't there, or if they're there, they're low wage and they're part-time. So you got to work 2 and 3 of them in order to just keep a roof over your head, let alone pay back that debt, which so many people are having to default on anyhow. They can't do it. So this is actually a threat to the future of our younger generation. It's a threat to our whole economy to have this outstanding debt that cannot be paid. And let me ask you, what society ever survived by devouring its younger generation? That is what our economy is doing right now, on jobs, on debt, and on the climate. So we say, we can cancel that debt. We came up somehow with $16 trillion to bail out Wall Street. We can come up with $1.5 trillion, which is what it takes to bail out students. There is no better investment in the future for all of us than it is to education free.
That's right.
And to ensure that we have debt-free private higher education as well. So we can fix it. In fact, we know that higher education pays for itself. For every dollar we put in,
That's right.
we get back $7 in
That's
return.
right.
We know this from the GI Bill after the Second World War. There is no excuse not to be
That's right.
providing free public higher education. It is a necessity. It's not a choice. We should not be putting people into lifelong debt in order to acquire skills that they need to survive. It's an outrageous idea
Insanity.
that could only have come up from Wall Street banks
The hedge
and the
funds,
political
boy. That's right.
predators who are in bed with them.
That's right.
So we say no to that. It's time to make that decision. And just to name a couple other things, it's also time to revive our public education system and ensure that every community has an excellent public school. And that means paying our teachers well, supporting our teachers' unions, forgetting this high-stakes test nonsense, which is bad for students, bad for teachers, bad for education. Teach the whole student for lifetime learning. Bring back arts and music and recreation. They don't want this high-stakes testing thing because they don't want to deal with reality.
That's right.
Reality is, if you want to educate kids, the number one thing you have to do is get rid of poverty.
That's right. In poverty.
The education crisis. And one other thing I should mention, healthcare. It's time to join the community of civilized nations
Wow.
and provide healthcare. Thank you. It is absolutely inexcusable and unacceptable that tens of thousands of people are dying every year just for lack of health care. For the same amount of money we are spending right now, if we just take it out of the bureaucracy and the paper pushing and the bloated CEO salaries and the extortion by pharmaceutical companies who are charging $400 for an EpiPen that contains $1 worth of medication, just by putting those dollars into real health care, we can ensure that everyone is covered. Everybody in, nobody out. You're covered from head to toe. Your medications, your hearing aid, your reproductive rights, from head to toe, from cradle to grave. We can cover everything. So this is what the world can look like. We have the power. We have the numbers. The 43 million young people. We have the potential to do this. And when they say, oh, you're only 5% in the polls, remember this. The polls are almost uniformly looking at expected voters. Well, we are giving a whole new crop of people a reason to come out and vote. People who have not voted before. So do not be discouraged by the polls. The odds are, the numbers are actually much higher than the polls are going to reflect. Because what we want to bring in are the people who've been discouraged from voting because the Democratic and Republican parties have been throwing them under the bus.
That's right.
We are going So we can have an America and a world that works for all of us. A world that puts people, planet, and peace over profit.
That's right.
The power to create that world is not just in our hopes, it's not just in our dreams, right here and now, it's in our hands. We have the power, we are the ones we've been waiting for. Together we are unstoppable. Thank you so much for making this happen. I'm the only candidate left standing that is not Donald Trump, who was it that published this? I don't recall, but he has something like, he's engaged in the last decade or two in 3,500 lawsuits, half of them against him.
Right.
And this is a guy who appears not to pay taxes, but he's bankrupting our legal system by exhausting our courts with all of his lawsuits. And he's being sued, among others, by the students that he cheated at Trump University. So, this is like what our politics has come to, where they're mainly debating which one of them is the greater crook. We say, a pox on both of their houses. I think American people doesn't need to be persuaded that they could do better, that they deserve better, that they deserve a candidate who is not on the payroll of the big banks and the fossil fuel giants and the war profiteers. I think it's as simple basically as getting to the microphone in order to win the day here. And I think it's also a matter of engaging people who've been locked out and giving people a reason to come out and take back this promise of a democracy. And along those lines, I want to introduce Nathan Lane here, who is our all the usual, politics. It's like what you did for Bernie. Bernie went from like 2% up to, the winner basically in a matter of months. You have 2 months, and you know what? People first start paying attention right about now. So, however far we get is a victory. In order to eventually win the White House, and I wouldn't rule it out, by the way, by any means. There are stranger things that have already happened in this race. I would not rule out winning the White House. This is a real possibility. But I think the key thing is that we not take no for an answer, and we organize like our lives depend on it. Because in this race, we are not just deciding what kind of a world we will have, in fact, but whether we will have a world or not going forward. If you look at the climate crisis, if you look at these expanding wars that know no end that are blowing back at us, if you look at the nuclear arms race, which has been re-engaged, we got a hotter Cold War going on now than I can ever remember. So this is not just, something to go home and sit down and shut up about. This is about standing up for the justice that we deserve, knowing that we have the numbers that it takes to win the day, that when we stand up with the courage of our convictions, we are an absolutely unstoppable force. So get in touch with Nathan and stay in touch with us as a campaign. Let's get the word out. Let's do what you did as the burners. Let's keep making good on the work that you've been doing, that the Green Party has been doing. Together we are absolute magic. Thank you so much.
Burn green.
Burn green.
I wanted to